Hello everyone and welcome back to another video on my channel. Today we're going to be doing an underrated Doctor Who episodes video. Now I did one of these a couple of years ago, but it was pretty bad because I was relatively new to YouTube. So I'm going to be doing another one, and the format is going to be a little bit different. I'm going to be talking you through my personal underrated stories from each Doctor, excluding the 8th Doctor because he really only had the movie and it would be kind of limited there. But I think I found an underrated story from every Doctor, so today we're just going to talk through them. So we'll start with William Hartnell. Now, for the Hartnell era, I have chosen The Gunfighters, which is a lovely four-parter from season 3, and I would say it's one of my favourite Hartnells. It isn't the best. I wouldn't, vote it as one of my an all-time classic, but I always have such a soft spot for The Gunfighters. I can pop it on anytime, pretty much, when however I'm feeling. I could be happy, sad, this is the story that just makes me so happy. It's really warm, it's very comfortable, it's an easy watch, it's not too heavy either, and Hartnell was just so good in this. It's definitely one of his strongest performances. The companions are Stephen and Dodo, which is a lovely TARDIS team. I do have a soft spot for Dodo as it is, and it just has some lovely moments, and if you haven't got this one already, I would really recommend viewing it because it's a typical Western story, but it's done really well, and for 1966 or 5 or whatever this was, it's really strong. So that's why I put The Gunfighters in my first Doctor position. The second Doctor was quite hard to choose because all of his stories are pretty well loved. However, I've gone for the relatively new edition of the faceless ones. Now, you would think that this, would have been getting loads of attention considering it came out last year, and I would say it has. But I think, it's sandwiched between the Macra Terror and Fury from the Deep in terms of sort of release animation format. However, I love this story. It's definitely my favourite of the animations that they've done. By quite far. It's just a lovely six-parter. Again, really easy to watch, simple. Troughton is excellent in it, and there are 2 surviving parts, so even if you're not a big fan of the animation, there's still that there for you as well. It's just really nice. Ben and Polly are in it, but not for half the story, I think. So if you're a fan of Jamie, you definitely get to see him shine in this story. It's just really nice, and I've only watched it once, but I really do plan to watch it again, and that says something that it's a really good story. And it is. It's really good. Creepy as well. Good moments too. For the third Doctor now, I've chosen the Series 9 finale, or the Season 9 finale, I should say, which is The Time Monster. There we go. Again, this one is overlooked. People regard it as the story that goes to Atlantis, which is pretty bad. And I would say the first half is much, much stronger. Now, I don't know, you've probably heard me talk about this story on the channel before, but it's really good. I think I watched it last summer, about a year ago, and it's just really good. I was so impressed. The first 4 parts out on location are great. Unit is fabulous in this one. The Master, Roger Delgado, is brilliant as always. I believe this is his penultimate performance. And even when you do go to Atlantis, the story doesn't dip that much. It's still very good. Pertwee is strong in this. Katie Manning, brilliant. It's just what you want from a third Doctor adventure. It's got a bit of sci-fi and that bit of grounded, down-to-earth feel that the Pertwee era does have. So yeah, overall, really recommend this one. And if you don't have it, give it a watch because you will be surprised. The 4th Doctor era now, I could have chosen lots from this era, to be honest, considering it's quite a strong era, but I've gone for The Creature from the Pit. Now, again, this is one that I hear no one talk about pretty much, but it's really good. I wouldn't say it's a classic. I wouldn't say any of these are classics, to be honest. Maybe the faceless ones, but hey. But it's just, I really enjoy it, and I don't know what it is about it. It's simple, but it's so nice. This was the first one that they filmed in season 17. That's a fun fact for you. So technically this is Lalla Ward's debut. This was her first, story to film. It's just really simple, really good. The cast are brilliant. You've got Jeffrey Belden there, who is brilliant in this. And I believe it was one of the first Tom Baker stories that I saw, maybe, potentially. So I guess it has a soft spot in that regard, but season 17 as a whole is so underrated, and this is definitely very underrated. So if you don't have this one or you haven't watched it yet, please give it a go, because although it's nothing amazing, you probably won't come out of it thinking that's your favourite story ever. But it's a solid watch, and I just wish it was talked about more. From the Fifth Doctor era now, this one was hard to choose, I think, because the Fifth Doctor era I'm not a big fan of. However, I've chosen Black Orchid. I wouldn't say this is necessarily underrated, but I really enjoy it, and it's definitely a really easy to watch two-parter. And for anyone that hasn't seen Black Orchid, I would really recommend it, because I don't know, there's something so charming about it, whether that be the location work, or just the feel of it. It's really nice. You can't really hate it. It's just so innocent, and I love it. It's great. I don't know what it is about it, but Black Orchid is amazing, and you should definitely watch it because it's strong. It's very, very strong. Now, the Sixth Doctor era, again, this was a really tough one to choose because I'm not a big fan of the Sixth Doctor era, and I didn't really want to pick Vengeance on Varos, which is a brilliant story because it's not really underrated. But I've chosen The Ultimate Foe. Now, this obviously concludes The Trial of Time Lord and is technically Colin Baker's last TV story. And it's pretty good. Again, it's a two-parter, but part two is a little bit longer. I think it's half an hour rather than 25 minutes. And again, it's not a classic, it's not one of my favourites, but it's strong. It's a good story for the Sixth Doctor, and I certainly don't hate it. It's got some lovely elements in it. I believe this was filmed in Stoke-on-Trent or somewhere near there, but it's great. It has some really creepy elements in it, with the Sixth Doctor being sucked into the sand, and it's quite sort of in the Matrix. So if you're into that, then definitely give this one a watch. But obviously watch the whole of the thing first. But again, this is a very strong entry into the Trial of a Time Lord. Next, we have the McCoy era. Now this is from season 24. I'm really excited to get this on Blu-ray next month. Delta and the Bannermen. Now, I do have a bit of a soft spot for this story because this was the first ever McCoy story that I saw, and probably the first 80s story that I saw, and one of the first classics that I saw, if we're going down that route. But it's lovely. It is very, very wacky and very, very camp, but there's something so lovely about it, and it's so fun to watch. This is not a boring story. It's a three-parter, I believe, but it's just so fun. It's out in the countryside, in the camp. You've got some space. You've got Ken Dodd in there, who makes a lovely appearance. It's just so fun, and it really radiates that energy that season 24 is all about. But yeah, again, if you haven't watched this one, please, please, please go and watch it, because again, it's not going to be one of your favourites of all time, although it is one of my favourites of all time. But it's just certainly so lovely, and you can't go wrong with Delta and the Bannermen. Moving on to the Ninth Doctor era now. So I struggled here a little bit because none of Series 1 is really underrated, but I've chosen Boomtown, which I believe is the sort of penultimate story in the series, but I just think it's overlooked because obviously you got the Slovene two-parter earlier in the season, and it's right before the finale, so it has that sort of disadvantage, I suppose, but it's really strong. I get so much enjoyment out of watching Boomtown. You've got obviously the weird Slovene lady whose name slips my mind, but it's just really fun out on Cardiff. It's just, I don't know what it is about it. Again, I think it was one of the first ever Ecclestons that I saw back in the day, but really enjoyable. Again, it's not a classic, I wouldn't say, but I'd say it's very strong, it's very fun, very easy to watch, just all round enjoyable. And you've got all the cast. You've got Eccleston, you've got a bit of Jackie, you've got a bit of Rose, you've got a bit of Mickey, you've got a bit of Captain Jack, so all very good stuff. Moving on to the 10th Doctor era now. This one was pretty hard to choose, but I've chosen a pretty obscure one, and I suppose that's the reason for it being on this list. Now, it's from the specials. Can you guess which one it is? I've chosen The Next Doctor, which is the 2008 Christmas special, I believe. Now, I really enjoy this story. I watched it a couple of years ago now, but I don't see the problem with it. It's a very, very enjoyable Christmas episode. I think I gave it an 8.5, and no one talks about it really. The Cybermen are in it, which you would think would help this story, and it does. It's great. I don't know what it is really, but this always reminds me of an underrated story, The Next Doctor. I think all the cast are brilliant in it. David Tennant, David Morrissey, Vilo Shulabala, who I met a couple of years ago now, and she sort of helped me grow to love this story a little bit. But it's wonderful. It really is. And if you, I suppose everyone's watched the New Who's, hopefully. But hey, if this is a story you don't remember much about, give it a watch. I know it's May, but hey, maybe this Christmas, because I'll certainly be watching it this Christmas. Next up, we've got the 11th Doctor era now. Again, this one was tough because there are quite a few to choose from. But I've chosen, I don't know if this is necessarily underrated, but I've gone for it anyway. I've chosen The Girl Who Waited, halfway through Series 6, I think, somewhere about that. But again, I remember this one going out when it was first broadcast and loving it, and my love for it hasn't changed really. I find it such an enjoyable story, simple but effective, and it isn't too heavy on the whole Series 6 arc either, which I'm not a big fan of, so I like the episodes that sort of go out of the way, such as, the God Complex, Night Terrors, that sort of batch of episodes I very much enjoy, purely for nostalgia reasons as well, really good. But yeah, The Girl Who Waited is such an underrated one, I think. It's really simple, you've got some moral dilemmas in there. Amy's good, Rory's good, Matt Smith is great, and River's not in it either, which is a bonus for me because I'm not a big fan of River in most stories. But yeah, overall a very strong story and one that I'd recommend you give a rewatch. Moving on to the Peter Capaldi era now. Now, this one is interesting because I could have put the entire Series 10 on this because Series 10 is such an underrated season, I think. It's my second favourite. But I've gone for The Eaters of Light, which is the penultimate proper adventure in the series. This one just doesn't get talked about at all, which annoys me because, again, it's not a classic. I wouldn't go out of my way to say it's one of my all-time favourites, but I believe it was written by Rona Munro, who is the only writer to write a classic story and a new story, and she wrote Survival, I believe. But The Eaters of Light is such a lovely story. It's really easy to watch, really easy on the eye, interesting, engaging. I don't know why people don't like it. Maybe it's boring, I'm not sure, or maybe there is a genuine problem with it, but on the whole I really enjoy it, and The Eaters of Light is a story that I really recommend you give a rewatch because it's not that bad at all. It's good. I'd give it a solid 8 out of 10, but I really watched it on first watch and I still do. Now finally we have the Jodie Whittaker era, and I've chosen a story from Series 11, but although I don't have Series 11 on DVD, I do have the soundtracks. That's what's going to be representing Series 11 here. There you go, try not to get it on the lights. There we go. But I've chosen The Witchfinders, which is a lovely historical, actually. I'd probably say it's one of my favourite Jodie stories, if not my favourite Jodie story. But I don't know, there's something so strong about it. I think it's King James who's in it. He's a brilliant character, really invested in him. The cast are brilliant. I love the villains, actually, the Moraks. And although the Whittaker era isn't that strong on the whole, this is a very good story. I'd give it a solid 7.5 out of 10. But yeah, it does get overlooked because, there are lots of historicals in the Jodie era, and all of them are very good, actually, such as Rosa, Demons of the Punjab, Nikola Tesla's Night of Terror, Spyfall, Diodati. They're all some of my favourites of the Whittaker era, and I think that is a very strong element of it. But The Witchfinders is my favourite. It's quite up my street as well. I'd probably write a story like that if I had the opportunity, but I just find it very nice. And I don't have the Target novel yet, but when I do, hopefully by the end of this year, I will give it a read because I'm so glad they novelised it, because that's helped to raise awareness a little bit. But yeah, that's my underrated story for Jodie Whittaker's era. So there we go, everyone. That was my Doctor Who underrated stories video. If you enjoyed this video, please give it a like and subscribe for more content in the future. I'm more than happy to do an overrated stories if you're interested in that, so please leave a comment down in the comments section if you'd like to see that. And who knows, if you'd like to give me some of your personal underrated stories from each Doctor, I'd really enjoy reading them as well. So there we go. Thanks so very much for watching, guys, and I'll see you in the next video whenever that may be. Bye for now.